Benjamin Disraeli, the famous erstwhile Prime Minister of the UK, once said, there are lies, there are damn lies, and then there are statistics. While the numbers around the Bharat opportunity can often be exaggerated to shock observers, it's really hard to overestimate the potential of the EdTech industry or the potential of EdTech itself to transform the country. Now consider this, while 90% of the students now have access to a smartphone, only 30% use EdTech products on it. Imagine bridging that gap. That would bring about exponential benefits in terms of upskilling, productivity and prosperity in a country which has the largest youth population in the world. It could actually help Bharat overcome decades of educational challenges at a stroke, train our workforce in skills of the future and do it at a fraction of the cost of all these formal institutions. How can this revolution be unleashed to its full potential? How can new digital tools be used to train and employ as well as empower Bharat's legions of aspirational and hungry youngsters? It's time to put these questions to the leaders and innovators leading the EdTech charge. Welcome to another special episode of SeedToScale and CNBC TV 18 presents Decoding Bharat. Over the next half hour, our esteemed panel of guests will discuss how they approach the challenges of empowering Bharat's youth via EdTech, upskilling and recruitment, which is the theme of our discussion today. And joining me on this star panel are literal luminaries and thought leaders of the EdTech sector. Let's welcome Prateek Maheshwari, who's the co-founder of PhysicsWallah, Ritesh Singh, who's the co-founder and CEO of Arivihan, Mayank Kumar, who's the co-founder and MD of Upgrad, joins in as well. And joining all of them is Rachit Parekh, who's the investor at Accel. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for joining in. Well, Prateek, let's start with you. As the recently elected chairman of the Indian EdTech Consortium, what according to you are the strategic imperatives that the EdTech sector needs to contribute positively to the education and skilling requirements of the people, and what exactly you and your peers are doing here?
EdTech can contribute a lot to the vision of a Viksit Bharat. The cost of delivery and the kind of engagements EdTech can drive through their courses, government or the formal education system can never achieve those numbers. Currently in the EdTech sector in India is very much private focused. We need a lot more players who work with government in a public-private partnerships, and there can be mechanism like a special purpose vehicles in which government entities and private entities come together and solve for Bharat. We are sitting on a gross enrollment ratio of 27% and to become a Viksit Bharat, we have to achieve it to 50%. And it requires $1 trillion of infrastructure investment. Then the digital is the only way. We have to innovate in terms of our curriculum, in terms of our pedagogy. We have to invite industries to design curriculum. Then only and digital is the only solution forward. So that is one big problem, which India is in one big problem as well as opportunity, that we are sitting on a very youthful country, but it becomes the nation's responsibility and a private sector responsibility that how can we make these youth skillful and create jobs for these youth. So that's where good academics and industry partnership is something required.
Ritesh, I have to ask you this, largely because everyone's talking about the big opportunity in Bharat, the remote areas that there are, the challenges that Bharat proposes as well. Digital is a solution, but how do you ensure that something like an Arivihan's automated features remain cost-effective and accessible to students, even in the remote parts of the country? We're talking about increased internet usage, but we're also grappling with unreliable networks.
The Prateek said, we have to be united, the government and the private organization, that we not only just build the solution tech-wise in the terms of education, but also how we will make it accessible to them. So that's where the data packs and the industry comes in, how we will feed the data to those remotest part. And so while we are giving solution to the one part of the problem, making education affordable, now government can help us in making other things affordable so that we can have this platform to reach those students in remotest area.
Let's go across to Mayank. Mayank, one of the myths that you want to break at Upgrad is the belief that only top colleges can deliver quality education. Education, thanks to digital, has been democratized now. One part is providing the quality education. You guys have been managing to do that. The other part is trying to convince the industry about it. How do you go about that? What are the challenges that you guys are facing, and how do you solve for that problem, basically?
I think at Upgrad, we don't try to be selective, but we do try to be eliminative, which is that sort of you take in people who cannot meet the basic criteria, and therefore they should come in. And people who do not meet the criteria, they should sort of get out of the program itself. So if you build an eliminative institution, you can do a broad-based sort of approach towards education. But in order to cover the credibility gap with the employers, I think sometimes you have to ask the question, do employers have a choice? I think given the kind of quantum of skilling and the number of people that everybody requires who needs to be skilled, employers have to look at these EdTech platforms and online programs to get access to high quality talent pool. I think that's the reason why we are seeing greater adoption by the corporate itself. We recently signed something with Accel Tech in sort of to skill up a large number of their employees as well. So I think close collaboration with employers will allow the credibility to sort of move up higher. But I always believe that you continue doing the right work, and as you start demonstrating outcomes, the credibility itself builds organically. So while we have to do a lot of work, focusing on outcomes in itself will lead to more credibility coming in amongst the employers for these platforms.
Let's go across to Rachit now. Rachit, in the stock markets and outside as well, the education sector is usually looked at as a sector that educates people in what not to invest in. There have been serious high-profile failures here as well. So, what do you think is an investable opportunity here, something that can sustainably grow wealth as a sector? Because while there is this opportunity, there have been players who've been growing, etc. as well, it's not particularly looked at as a sector that has created wealth.
As others on this panel have said, there's deep need for education in far-flung corners of India, which is not being satisfied by, let's say, the government today. And we need something to bridge that gap, whether it's private sector, independently, or in collaboration with government. So I think that need gap exists. We also know for a fact that Indians are willing to pay for education because this is one of the few ways to break out and really kind of maybe pull your families out of their circumstances and take them to the next level. So I think all of that there's definitely an opportunity. But I'll go back to what Mayank said. I think the core remains that while investing in education, and while it's not part of this discussion, but I think the same applies even in healthcare, is that outcomes matter. You can't just be a completely commercially minded organization which is going after maximizing profit while forgetting about outcomes. If that happens in parallel, that's excellent. And some people on this panel have obviously done that in an amazing way. But I think the reality is that if you focus on the right things, which is creating the right educational outcomes for people, you can create sustainable education organizations. And I think we're going to see that in the next year or two. You'll see a number of organizations potentially that either go towards listing, or you'll see that they're basically be able to bridge that gap between outcomes and financials. And that remains across the board, right? So everything from K-12, where we genuinely need interventions because of this low student-teacher ratio, access to education, and companies like Arivihan and PhysicsWallah are solving a lot of those problems. And then in upskilling, right? We have a massive skill gap that employers face. All of us, I'm sure, have struggled to hire people in India. And companies like Upgrad are solving that gap. And that's the opportunity that we believe that exists across India today.
Before we take that short break, I'd like to come to each of you all individually and try and find out how many people do you guys actually employ from people who do not come from the organized erstwhile legacy school system and perhaps come in from any of these edtechs. Well, Prateek, go ahead, and then we go to Ritesh, then after Mayank, and then Rachit.
Current ecosystem is changing very fast. After PhysicsWallah affordable courses, we have seen 500 doctors and engineers come, they are the first one to come out of their villages. So EdTech have played a very important role in democratizing education, and now the quality education is accessible to the masses. But there are challenges at the same time. When we say that 90% penetration of the mobile phones, how much of these mobile phones are exclusively available to these students? Probably one mobile phone is being shared by the entire family of 8 people. Siblings, 3 siblings are sharing one phone. So still I feel that hardware availability and internet accessibility is a big challenge. So EdTech have reached to the level where hardware and internet have reached, but there's an India beyond that, and government predominantly available in that India. So if you want to solve for that bottom of the pyramid, we have to closely work with the government.
Ritesh, what about you? I mean, how many people do you think you can employ from people who've come from non-traditional education institutions?
When we started Arivihan, so our main aim was to reach the remotest area of the country. So that's why we started a promotion, especially in those areas only. But as Prateek mentioned, there are certain challenges in reaching those areas. First one is the limited availability of the hardware, but also some reluctance in the parents' mind to go to a new approach, because this is an important decision of their kids' life. So that's why sometimes they show reluctance, but as we are showing our results and building trust with them year by year, it's becoming easier for us.
All right, hardware availability is one of them, but Mayank, again, we come back to the jobs point, right? How many people from Upgrad do you think get employed in respectable organizations at pay parity as against traditional organizations?
We see roughly about 84% of our learners finding outcome within 6 months of completion of the program. And they end up getting a roughly sort of 40 to 50% jump in the prior salary. And that's how they see the ROI or the outcome coming out of the investment that they have done in the program. On the employee front, we have currently about 3,500, 4,000 individuals who are on our payroll. Out of that, about 90% of them are not from traditional teaching and education background, and they have come from different industries who have come on board. And about 10% of them come from teaching background. And then we work with about 5,000 plus mentors and teachers and faculty members on a remote basis. And that's the ecosystem that we are building. So I think education overall and as a platform, I think our main approach is, and for all of us, is going to be how do we provide learners who are coming in the right outcomes, and people who are working in come from diverse backgrounds, such that what we are coming out is a very heterogeneous sort of point of view, which supports a more holistic education for a large number of people coming in.
Absolutely, that's great insight out there. So let's wrap it up with Rachit. Then Rachit, how would you take it if a resume, say my resume came to you, and it wasn't one of those fancied business schools, etc. Instead, I had learned financial modeling from one of the courses which some of these EdTech guys had to offer. Would that be any different from the way you would look at another resume?
Yeah, look, I think the right question for us is probably not on hiring, but more on funding, right? Because that's we're at the end of the day a fairly small organization. It's more about who we're funding. I think I'll go back to what we're doing here and what we've done over the last few months, right? One of our biggest objectives has been to expand the funnel of people who we meet through initiatives like this, right? Decoding Bharat and others. And we are very, very focused on making sure that we're investing in companies and people who truly understand the end industry. It doesn't matter what their backgrounds are, where they've gone to college, where they're based. As recently as a couple of months ago, we just closed a funding round in a company that's based in Aurangabad, and is not from one of everything that you said, right? It's not from a fancy B school or anything like that, but purely because they have the deep insights and knowledge of the sector that they're focused on. So we are continuously trying to do that and expand that funnel, and that's been one of our biggest focus areas over the last few months, and we hope to do more of these.
All right, take that point. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for that. We'll take a short break. On the other side, we will continue our discussion. It's just heating up right now. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching us here on this special episode of SeedToScale and CNBC TV 18 present Decoding Bharat. We are understanding the opportunities in Bharat for EdTech, upskilling and educating the youth with a luminary of panels. Prateek, let's talk about a couple of other things as well. The most important is that now we've understood all these synergies, etc. I'm sure there are some unique problems that India possesses, for which there have been some unique solutions that you guys have deployed as well. Could you give us a sense of what those have been and what the outcome of that has been?
What we have created is India's mega classrooms for grade 9 to 12 students, where 40-50,000 students are studying together. It gives them a community feeling and as a sense of engagement, and that brings down the cost of delivery very low. The entire JEE or NEET preparation is being delivered in 4,000 rupees. Traditionally, it used to be 1.5 lakh rupees. So that enables bottom of the pyramid and the middle of the pyramid to study with the good quality teacher. Along with that, we have tried a very unique model, a two-teacher system. We have inspired from China, in which good teachers remains in metros and they do this live delivery to tier 3, tier 4 cities. It's a two-way interaction platform, and tier 3 city students sits in a 40-student classroom with the smart board in front of them. So we have 55 such centers across India, and that makes offline, cost is quite affordable. It's like 1/3 of the traditional cost of the delivery, So democratizing education is very important. There's a huge value unlock which is hidden with the cost of education. And currently, because of these innovations, we are able to teach 40 million free users and 4 million paid users, across 98% pin codes of India.
Ritesh, there is always a difference in the experience and the quality of education if it is imparted in person or it is imparted, virtually. How do you bridge that gap? And what are the other innovations that you are looking at to bolster learning access and, more importantly, evaluation as well? A lot of people may be very easily be able to game this system, say if you're evaluating them via online exams, etc. So how do you ensure that the quality imparted is similar to the quality which is received and bridge this gap between physical and online learning?
So when we talk about the offline classes, so definitely those classes are more engaging because teacher is in front of you. In our case, we are an AI-based platform. So in our case, there is no human who is directly teaching the student, but actually the AI version of the tutors are teaching it. So it was a challenge for us, definitely. But that's how what we created is that our lectures are though recorded, but after teaching every concept, they ask questions to students. And with the help of speech recognition technology, we take their input and change the lecture content according to their answer. So this is a unique approach to create an engaging lecture. So apart from that, in a class, it's very important to solve the student's query. Whenever a student asks something, you need to solve it. So that's why this generative AI technology that we are incorporating is helping us in solving students' query in real time. So whatever used to be happen in an offline class, we have created a similar surrounding here in an online version where we are interacting with you and you can also ask anything and it will be solved in real time.
A question to you, Mayank. Education is a low engagement or a one-time sort of engagement, upskilling sort of product. If I could do 1 course, 2 courses, 3 courses, how do you, one, upsell to your existing students? And secondly, how do you maintain engagement with all your students throughout the life? From a business case standpoint of view, how do you do that?
So maybe two ways of responding to that query, Mangalam. One is that how do we do that currently? So one thing that happens is, so point number one, I believe that over a period of time, learning has to be more continuous than one-time initiative. So gone are the days that you got one polio shot and you're done with it. You need to continue going back and getting yourself skilled, because the job or the skill that you are in, the shelf life of the knowledge is reducing significantly. So when I graduated, there were no role as product manager, social media manager, digital marketing manager, so on and so forth. I mean, these jobs are coming in. My son, who's 10 years old, by the time he gets to job market, 50% of jobs won't exist. So there's a statistic which says that you will go through about 7 to 8 career shifts in your career span. Therefore, skilling has to be more ongoing. And that macro thematic will drive more people to take up skilling program on an ongoing basis. Coming to business problem that you mentioned, as organization, what we do is once a learner has gone through the program, you create a very strong alumni and a club network. That alumni network continues to engage with the alumni and sort of on an ongoing basis, understand the requirements, understand the needs, and create something what we call a stackable credential, that you can do a 1 certificate with us, do 2nd certificate, 3rd certificate, and you can stitch it together to end up getting a degree as well. That stackability allows people to keep on coming back and repeating on an ongoing basis, on a consistent basis. So I think a macro behavior where people have to constantly upskill, which is there's no option about and there's no second thoughts about, and the fact that you can create a business model where you are engaging with the learner post completion as well, even once they have found a job or an outcome, because individuals will keep on coming every 3 to 5 years to get a reskill or get one more shot of injection to get ready for the job market. And I think that behavior is what will drive sort of constant engagement. And beyond that, there are multiple things that as a nation we need to do. And just taking an example very quickly from the financial services, you have the ATC benefit from mutual fund. Can the same be provided in education? You have media such as CNBC, TV18 promoting investments into various sort of financial derivatives, financial sort of platforms. Can the same thing be done with media and sort of build this out? And multiple engagements like this will also create a culture of lifelong learning, because as a country, our biggest natural resource is our people. And we need to invest really hard such that we don't end up becoming old before we end up becoming rich as a country.
Let's finally give the last word to Rachit, the investor out here. Rachit, these three gentlemen have convinced us that there is a large total addressable market. There are players, and with a lot of solutions, there is a lot of business case for this as well. Investment, scaling, from all standpoints, this looks like a match made in heaven. The question then is, what as an investor should you watch out for as pitfalls to avoid? And what are the trends that you should monitor as the next leg of growth or next leap forward of growth in this space here?
I think what we've learned over the last generation of edtechs, right? The first thing that we would want to look for, which I think you would also want to avoid if it's not there, is outcomes, right? As you talk to students, as you talk to parents, as you talk to people who are participating in these edtech courses, are they really seeing value in it? Are they growing personally? Are they able to achieve their objectives in some shape or form, whether it's immediate, like in terms of tests, or long-term, as Mayank has said, in terms of lifelong learning, are they able to achieve those objectives? The second thing I think that the future is going to hold is something that I think all three, Upgrad, Arivihan, and PhysicsWallah are working on, which is every person's journey is going to be different. While there will be certain skills that each person needs, how they acquire those skills, their learning journey is going to be different. And it's going to be more and more personalized based on using AI or using other technology. So what is going to be different this time is, one, we would want to look for companies which are truly driving educational outcomes and driving it by personalizing journeys, learning journeys as much as possible, and continuously moving down the path of one-to-one education in some shape or form, because that's what the country really needs. If you look at some of our statistics, there are 6th grade students who do maths at the level of, let's say, 3rd grade students. And there are some 6th grade students who do maths at the level of 8th grade students. They don't need the same teaching. They need a different curriculum. They need a different learning journey. And the same applies to even like adults who are going through this lifelong learning journey, right? Each person is at a different stage and needs to learn different things. So I think that's what we would want to see. And the pitfalls that we would want to avoid is anyone who's not truly driving those outcomes in education just for financial reasons, versus also thinking about it as a more holistic kind of like almost a mission that they're living for and driving towards.
Well, this conversation itself was quite an educating experience for me. I'm sure it will be for the viewers as well. Thank you so much, Prateek, Ritesh, Mayank, and Rachit, for joining in. Your insights and ideas clearly show that there is need for it, and I can't wait to see what kind of change it brings about in our nation as we move towards Decoding Bharat as well. On that note, that's it from this edition of SeedToScale and CNBC TV 18 present Decoding Bharat. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day. Watch out for the next episode of this series.